Hi class, I wanted to take a little bit of time to go over this book that we have assigned for your reading this month. I know some of you don't get a chance to look through it. It's really easy read, a great skim, good information, but I know you don't always get to it, and so that's why I've said make sure you focus on your submissions. If this is slowing you down reading this particular assignment each week, then save it for after you make your submission. It will be helpful to you, but you're not going to be graded on it per se. Okay, so let's jump in. The Laws of UX. This is by Jan Jablonski, and this has been updated. There's a number of editions. The thing is, the theory doesn't really change very often, so it's something that once you learn for the next 10 years at least, it should be really useful to you. Why do we practice UX, user experience? To design better user experiences, and based on psychological principles, the things that we have learned about people and the way we absorb design, the way we take in content. These are the things that we have boiled it down to that you can actually use and help ensure that your users have a better experience. As we said, they're psychological principles. They explain how the user interacts with our design, and they help make our interfaces a little more human-centered, a little more intuitive, because people don't like to come to our site and think. They want to be able to land on it, have it be in some sort of common organization. The contact in the last position, for example, the home in the first position, these kinds of things separated by blocks, because that's how our mind breaks things down in quadrants when we're skimming a page. So these are the things we want to do. This is where these laws have originated. The reason they're important is because they do help the user scan. We know that's how people take in information. We know they prefer familiarity. That makes it quicker. And we know they don't want to spend a lot of effort when they've come somewhere to get just the information they need. Good UX reduces that friction, and it helps build trust with your user that they know when they go there, they're going to be able to navigate your site, get the information they need, and perhaps then trust what you're giving them because of it. So Hick's law tells us that the more choices people have, the slower their decision process, right? And we don't want to slow them down. So we limit the options and we prioritize those actions that they have to take. If we're writing instructions for you, I don't want to have you make too many decisions. I want to make it clear what the priorities are, because those are the things that you have to do. And what I've discovered is that when we have a lot of instructions, students really don't know what the priority is because they think it's all important. And it is on some level, but there are steps within the instructions that are actually more priority, right? So that's why we kind of keep things low as far as how many choices people have to think about when they come to our site. We don't want to give them a lot of pages to go through. They'll have a harder time knowing what they want to do. We like when we have limited options. We like options, everybody likes options, but when we get too many, we get overwhelmed and we bounce. Whether that's a menu, whatever it is, we get overloaded and we don't stay. So Fitts law is another one. It's common sense, but it's easier to think about, and when we talk about it for our websites, it's something that we can remind ourselves how important it is and how we should use it. And that is that bigger and closer targets are easier to use. That can be if you, for somebody who may have a dexterity issue and they're on your site, we want to have bigger, we don't like those little radial buttons unless there's something else attached to it, like a few words that they can actually hit. And so examples of this are going to be in factories, right? The stop button is always going to be bigger than the go. Your brakes are going to be larger than your gas pedal, right? So it's critical for our buttons, and it's critical also for our mobile design because that's a smaller screen. So Fitts law is simply, it's easier for people to use our site when it's easier to hit the targets, right? A lot of content doesn't leave a lot of room for the navigation that we expect them to be able to work with, right? So Jacob's law is that we expect familiar patterns, and that has a lot to do with what I was saying before. The contact being at the end, for example, the navigation being in the header usually, so we don't have to look for it. And we don't need to be creative in those locations. There's lots of ways to be creative, but we don't want to make it so creative that the user has to work harder to get to the things that they're used to looking for. Miller's Law is that the user visiting your site can only hold a certain amount of limited information in their memory at one time, right? It might be up to 5 to 7, depending on the person, but generally that's where it is. And so we chunk content into smaller groups. We don't give a lot of information. And when we are doing things like, here's an example of your Wix layout, they've kept it very simple. They have the icons, and then they could go into an explanation about the adding elements. They could tell you more about it, but this isn't what they want to do, and it's not the place for it. Does that mean someone has to figure it out? Well, maybe, but they're more likely to be able to figure it out when they have that space cleared in their brain to be able to, understand what these are. They don't have to look and find the most important words in a line of text to help them. So, sometimes it's just better to cut things down and help them make those connections visually, right, than giving a lot of content for them to memorize. The navigation in the Wix platform, for example, there's not a lot of icons. And in fact, our students mostly use add elements and pages and menu. So that makes it a lot easier for them to learn to build sites and for them to actually do what they came to do. The law of proximity. When you've had graphic design, this is true. You also use it in film. Anything that is visual, we're going to use this. Items close together are going to feel related, right? Using spacing intentionally, grouping, that helps, right? So we don't throw things into our layout that we don't need. And if we do need it, we're going to put it next to, what it relates to. Okay? So the Doherty threshold means that fast systems feel more productive. Yeah? So we want to make sure that our site isn't sluggish, that we don't have a lot of videos, a lot of content on it, a lot of images. We don't want it to slow down. And what it means when they're saying aim for instant feedback, that means how long does the user have to wait for something to finish loading, for example. Any of that is downtime. So for them, and that doesn't feel like a productive system, right? They can get more if they can go through quickly. So the law of similarity. Similar elements are going to feel connected, right? And things next to each other, like the proximity, are going to feel connected, right? If you're at a wedding and you're standing next to someone, you don't know them, but somehow you're grouped with them, like maybe just another person, and the others are kind of spread out, people are going to think you're together. They're going to think that you came and you know each other. It doesn't always have to be the case, but, that's what people will instinctually imagine, that that's a group because they're close together. So similar elements are going to feel connected likewise. Keep buttons and links consistent because that helps them understand that this is connected in some way. They start to look for a pattern. We like to see patterns so that we don't have to spend our time on things that don't make sense to us. We don't want to have to figure out something where there isn't a pattern. That is incredibly frustrating for people, to try and figure out what the pattern is when there isn't one. Right? Really tough. Let's see. Aesthetic and usability effect. So the more attractive a design is, the easier it feels to use. And that usually involves simplicity in some way. It may be that it's a monochromatic color pattern and palette, and that might work really well and feel attractive and easy to digest. So visual polish will increase the tolerance, how long somebody will stay on our site. If it's too chaotic, it's like looking at charts, right? Or looking at the policy content on a website we tend not to read the terms, right? We should, but there's so much of it that we don't have a tolerance for it, right? So we want to be careful about how much content we're throwing at people. This is a really great site. Adoratoria Studio, they've got some really strong designs, right? And maybe we'll look at those, but I recommend taking a look at that. So here's just another one that happens to be one they designed, and that's the Max Mara, and this is animated. It's like a game almost. It's a clothing, and they have really clean sites. But you can check out this particular game if it's still here. They had a different one in February that I'm not able to find that was about lanterns. And, you know, it's a game in that you select the lantern and it's moving around. They've got music a little bit. This one has the sound of the city, kind of muffled. It's not really loud. But this, you enter the experience, right? And it's about their jacket. But they keep it simple, and their site doesn't have a lot of inventory either. It's really simple, very expensive, but very simple. Legibility helps you read letters. When we say, let's make sure it's legible, right? Like the Max Mara, we can read that. It's clear, it's dark over a pale background, easy to read. Readability helps you understand the message. So that can even be images, can be, you know, is it readable? Do we understand what it's about at a glance, right? So Tesler's law is that we need to avoid complexity as far as on the user's end. We don't want them to see all the complexity. It doesn't mean that there's not complexity behind it, you know, where they can't see it. What a graphic designer does is they take a lot of information and they try and simplify it in a way that anyone can understand it. So it's digestible and visually. That's what a graphic designer does. They try and make it eye-catching, fun sometimes if that's what's necessary, stand out, but be simple. But it can still be a complicated concept that has just been simplified in a way that people can grasp it, right? So while there is some complexity, and we can't always avoid that, we do want to shift it away from the user's end, okay? We don't want to overload them cognitively, right? We want to reduce cognitive load. All right, so week 3, this is the week that in some cases you're going to be reviewing a peer site or working further on your own professional site. And we can go through and look at this. So for the RISE peer feedback, you have a list that's given to you, and you're going to look at the peer after you. The way you do that is go to the profile in your FSO tab, look for the person after you in the roster. If they have not yet submitted, when you're ready to work on it, then go to the next person who has. You can go back and should go back to their previous submission. You're able to access that on the discussion. Go back to their previous submission to get the link, and then you can, begin with that. They aren't going to submit that link to the peer review assignment. It's already submitted in an earlier one, and you want to go back and pick it up there, right? So you really shouldn't have to wait too much unless they just haven't submitted that yet, but most will have. But go to the next one if they haven't. You are going to use the RISE model, as you all know and are familiar with. You're going to use the one that's provided for peer feedback. You're going to look at your peers' draft site, okay, and reflect on your work, what you had to do, right? Because you have the same criteria, and you're going to apply that to your peer site and give them some information, maybe some things that you learned, maybe help them with some things you see are missing from the checklist. Okay, so in the first task, you're going to give them a bulleted list of what you found. That list is going to make it easy for you then to make, and for task 2, your narrated video for them, because you're already going to have reviewed it and made your notes. All right, it's a checklist for you, and we do have you submit it, but you're just going to copy and paste from that checklist the things that they need to attend to, right? So, and do not copy the whole checklist. That doesn't work for them, right? So you can review the model and laws of UX, the RISE model and the laws of UX. That can help you in your peer review. You can go back to 2.2 to find their link. It'll be the person after you in the roster. You'll complete there'll be a link to a form. You can complete that. It'll ask for your name and for your peer's name, and then you'll check those things that need to be looked at. Not everything. You don't check what they've done. Check what they need to look at, right? You'll also submit your peer's site link, your bulleted list, an electronic form separately. There'll be a button for you to, when you're finished, submit the list. And that just comes to us, and we just have a container that holds all of those and what you completed. Then you're going to create the 3 to 4 minute screen recording. Use the checklist to guide your feedback, and the RISE model, maybe dedicating a minute to the reflect, a minute to inquire, suggest, elevate, in that way. You do not need to be on screen, but you do need to have the website on screen. You want to use the websites because you're going to also be checking out the navigation. That's really important. How is it functioning? Super important. But if you need to use some screenshots, then you can do that too. But in order to check the navigation, you'll be doing that. If you're in web design, you're also going to be checking their mobile layout. Sometimes students forget to look at it. They run out of time. So that's something that you would really be able to help them with. We give them feedback on that, but they also appreciate, the things that you may see or suggestions that you may have. Mm-hmm. Remember, the prompts are going to be, I appreciate this because of this, and you're going to inquire about something that you noticed. Why did they do something? Maybe there's an interesting story there. Make your suggestions based on some of the things that you've learned, based on the checklist, based on your reading, based on your knowledge of design elements, principles of design. And then you're going to find a way to maybe even elevate the site. Where could it go next? All right, so submit your peer site link, the bulleted checklist, okay, not the whole checklist, just the bulleted things that need to be looked at, and your embed the video. You're going to have your unlisted YouTube video, embed it into the discussion board, right? If you're using QuickTime, then you're going to upload it to your professional YouTube site, and copy that embed code and put it in the discussion board using the embed icon in your FSO toolkit, right, editor, your tool editor. So confirm settings, make sure they're for public. I haven't had a problem with that in a long time. They're not usually private, okay? So that's what you do for that. You'll have 30 points for the list and approximately 30 points. I don't think we've changed that. You'll have the narration video. Remember to check your audio and that it is there. I sometimes let you resubmit if the audio's somehow had a problem. Maybe 2 students will have that happen a month, but you won't get full credit until you resubmit that. Make sure the links are active, that the video format is correct. We want horizontal, right? We don't want a mobile screen. There are ways you can check the mobile. There's something in Chrome where you can check it, and a mobile view. You can change the size of the website window and look and see what it does when it's reduced to another screen size. So there are multiple things to do, but it's good if you can include what that looks like, but we still don't really want it on mobile unless you edit it into, and that sounds like a lot of work to do that. All right, so you're practicing meaningful professional peer feedback based on the criteria that you were asked to meet. Reinforce your design knowledge and apply your portfolio level skills. Okay, you're going to use your rights model. You can look at the laws of UX. You're supposed to read chapters 5 and 6 this week, but you can use any of those chapters to help you. Again, you can use the QuickTime. Make sure your audio settings are correct. Okay. Only the edits go in the checklist, that you post in task 1. Your narrated video should be embedded so it plays. And this is your checklist that you used when you created your website, right? So these are the things that you're going to be looking at. There are some details you'll find in the checklist that you're provided with the form, but essentially these are the areas that you were graded on. They're not going to have these points necessarily. This is just the checklist that you were given. Okay. All right, so key takeaway, UX is about human behavior. Simple, familiar designs work best. Make sure that you are going through their site as if you were first-time site visitor, even if you've already looked at it. Look at it closely. How is someone visiting their site going to experience interface? All right. So this is the Adoratoria studio. They've made some really great sites. And here you can basically look at the layout of each page. Some aren't active currently because it depends on what year or how soon they've updated. Fashion changes a lot. This is a really great one, but I do not think they still have that one. This one is available, and if we go to this one, we can also turn the audio on for this if we choose. So it has just a little bit of that. Let's see if we go here. There's a game, there's the jacket. Okay, that will take you to their site. And their site is very clear. You can share the experience, you can go through. Just letting you know, lots of ideas. Click on the highlights to discover the jacket circle. Okay. Collect the hidden M monograms. All right. So this. I can go out of this. So this is just a really great concept that people are using in clothing sales and all kinds of things. Gucci, they're using a little more 3D. I kind of like this one, but you can see they're just connecting a concept, right, to their product. but it makes people want to stay on the site, right? Because aesthetics are easier for people to stay with and navigate. So that's an important one. They have this one too. Let's see, let's turn this one off and take a look at this one. So this one, you actually go through. This is 3D, but it's not like 3D avatars or anything. But I can go through to rooms. I can hit discover, but it's going to take me to a page, right? All right, so remember, it's important that people do not, that the audio isn't playing automatically on our sites. People want to be able to have control over that. This is another nice site. I'm not crazy about the navigation. It takes up a lot, but I do really like, and it's not fast, but I do like these images. Now, this is AI, unfortunately. I do like the design of it, of the photography. All right. All right. I hope that you see some things that inspire you to think about. Not that you're expected to create a thing like that this week, of course, but it's good to see good work. Here is just a color generator. If you go here, you can choose a color you like, and you can generate a color palette to go with it. Okay. All right. 2 gradients. So it's kind of cool. This is code for that, not that you need that. But the palette is really great, and you get the hexadecimal. The thing about a hexadecimal, remember, if I copy that and I just go up here to Google and I paste that in, it's going to give me the color. That's how you know it's correct. So it doesn't matter, it's going to be that color everywhere. It might look different on our screens, but that is the color of this. Okay, all right. So contact me with any questions whatsoever, and have fun this week.